that he trusts. Well, how do we figure this out? Joining me now is one of President Trump's first campaign advisors, Sam Nunberg. Mr. Nunberg, good to see you, sir.
Chuck, thank you for having me on.
So let's start with, you're somebody that's been fired a couple times by Donald Trump.
I think 3 or 4.
3 or 4? Okay, you're not even sure how many.
Correct.
Right now, I look at the folks that are currently around this president, and I look at the folks that used to be around this president, and I'm wondering, he can't be happy. What's it like when he doesn't have people around him that he trusts?
Well, first of all, I would say it was a shock to me, Chuck, that when Hope's announcement was made yesterday that she was leaving. She was somebody who I would have thought, Chuck, and you have dealt with her a lot as well, that she would be there in perpetuity. Right. And I don't know what's going on. The only thing I like to say about Hope all the time is that everybody will always say, well, Hope has this job because she's beautiful and Donald Trump wants to have beautiful women around him. She's very talented, she's capable, and she has the ability for that job. So with her announcing that she was leaving because of the Porter issue and because of what happened with her testimony, I think that there's a problem there, along with Rafael. And I think it ultimately, Chuck, goes back to Jared Kushner, frankly.
What do you...
Jared's a weak league, Chuck. Jared's a weak league in here. And yes, I don't like him. Okay, so let me get that out of the way. Yes, I'm part of the Bannon people. But Jared was doing nefarious things. It's strange credulity to believe that Jared was not trying to raise money for his fledgling business during the transition. I mean, that's Clinton cash stuff that he was doing.
Then what you're alleging is more than that. I mean, Clinton Cash didn't have that kind of evidence. You're alleging more than that.
I'm saying that Jared was trying to raise money for those buildings that are the worst real estate investment you've ever heard of in the history of real estate. And I think he was. And I think it's coming back to him.
You say that. Do you have evidence of it?
I do not have evidence at all. This is just me knowing what I read and knowing what I hear. And the other thing, by the way, too, Chuck, is, let's be honest here, is when Matt Drudge, who's Jared's best friend and is his PR agent, announces in the morning that there's going to be a big announcement and Brad Pascal is the campaign manager, and then you find out that Rafael is leaving, then you find out that Jared loses his clearance, and then you find out the next day that Hope, you know, that is to give the inference that Jared still has the brand, or still will control the campaign in 2020. And that's a joke in itself, and I can guarantee you, Chuck, that Brad Pascal will not be the campaign manager when the campaign actually goes off, that was just a scheme done by Matt Drudge and Jared.
Well, all right. Let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
You have been very close to Donald Trump, not, as you just admitted, you're not a big fan of Jared Kushner.
Correct.
What is Donald Trump's relationship with Jared Kushner?
It's a good question. You know, I can tell you one, I've never spoken to Jared directly. I've said hello to him a couple times in Trump Tower. I think that the president certainly trusts Jared and would certainly, you know, and he looks very highly on his daughter Ivanka, who's an incredible woman, and he probably praises and has a lot of respect for Jared vis-a-vis the fact that she married Jared. I think that Jared brought stability in the beginning to that campaign when he got in there. I think he brought order in, and I think they needed some management help there when he got in. Eventually, I don't know what went on. There's a lot of questions about whether or not Jared got money from Pascal, whether Pascal, they stole money from the digital buys in 2016. That's something that's going to have to come out. I have no idea, by the way. But I would say that Jared was somebody who was never mentioned to me by the president. And when he got more closer, the thing I would say, Chuck, is that Jared got involved in that when it looked like Trump was going to win, when it looked like Trump was going to be successful. Because I can tell you when I was there and everybody was laughing at us that Donald Trump was going to run, people were looking at me like I'm a joke. People were looking, you know, and Jared wanted nothing to do with that campaign.
Do you, I guess the reason I ask that question is the more trouble he gets into with Mueller, or the more perceived, where he's basically getting negative, as we know, Donald Trump doesn't like when there are people around him that acquire negative headlines. So, for instance, that was bad. Paul Manafort, he got fired not for his connections, but because his connections made it onto the front page of the New York Times.
What I'm thinking, Chuck, is I don't know, and here's a question I have as an observer. I have no idea, is I think Jared's going to get indicted for something. I don't know what it is. My question is, does the president want to keep Jared around, or does he want to have him leave the White House and go be with Charlie, Jared's father, where Jared can then turn on the president? And that's going to be one of the big deciding factors, ultimately, where this investigation goes. Now, look, I was in there last week, and I could tell you that
Mueller.
Yeah, well, not with Mueller directly, but with Mueller's investigation team. They were completely, competent. This was not a waste of time. They weren't just having me in there to check a box because they saw me on TV being interviewed by you about the Wolf book.
They had a specific, they knew exactly what it is they wanted to ask you about, what they believed you had information about.
Yes, and I can't get into it, and I'm not going to hurt their investigation. I'll get in enough trouble anyway for going on TV and talking to you. But what I would say is that this is something where they have everything, and we're going to find everything out. And I don't know what else there is.
Let me pause you there. You had the impression that you weren't being asked questions that they didn't already know the answer to?
Yeah, there was a point. Correct. Some questions they did know yes, in the beginning for sure. And then other questions, what happens is that you go in there, and for the first 75 minutes or 90 minutes or so, they beat you up and they hit you pretty hard, and they want to see if you're going to tell them the truth. And then afterwards, the next 3 hours or so, some of it they'll say, well, what are your insights here? But no, the majority of it was, 85% of it was they knew the answers.
And they were establishing how credible of a person you were at first.
The beginning.
That's what you felt. You felt like you were being tested to see how truthful you were.
In the beginning, yeah, and I was truthful, by the way. So.
Let me ask you, speaking of truth, because one of the things that leaked out of Hope Hicks was she had to admit that she told at least white lies. Donald Trump ever asked you to lie, and did you ever do it for him?
Sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, there were times where we spun. I mean, there were times where we gave our ideas. We gave our, how would I say it? We gave our view of what the story was. Do you consider that a lie? I don't know. I mean, this is politics. I would tell you that this has been done for Barack Obama. This has been done
I think there is a line. There's spin, and then there's totally
Donald Trump has never flat out asked me to flat out lie. No, he did not.
You never had anybody to ask you to lie?
Flat out told me anything to lie. He never flat out said that when we discussed something, he said, put a spin on it like this. This is our view of it. This is our version. I was never told to lie.
Did you ever feel like you have lied on his behalf?
No.